Life has started on this planet since 14 billion years ago. People come in this world and leave. Among them, some people have made their name heard across the world. But does they always had a successful life? Do they always wanted to become what they were? What were their struggles? How did they live? Do they got a peaceful end? To know about all this, let's take a walk with us to the facts unforeseen.
Albert Einstein was a German-born theoretical physicist who is widely held to be one of the greatest and most influential scientists of all time. Best known for developing the theory of relativity, Einstein also made important contributions to quantum mechanics, and was thus a central figure in the revolutionary reshaping of the scientific understanding of nature that modern physics accomplished in the first decades of the 20th century. His mass-energy equivalence formula E=mc², which arises from relativity theory, has been called the world's most famous equation. He received the 1921 Nobel Prize in Physics for his services to theoretical physics, and especially for his discovery of the law of the photoelectric effect, a pivotal step in the development of quantum theory. Life and career. Childhood, youth and education. Albert Einstein was born in Ulm, in the Kingdom of Württemberg in the German Empire, on March 14, 1879. His parents, secular Ashkenazi Jews, were Hermann Einstein, a salesman and engineer, and Pauline Koch. In 1880, the family moved to Munich's borough of Ludwigsvorstadt, where Einstein's father and his uncle Jacob founded Elektrotechnische Fabrik J. Einstein & C., a company that manufactured electrical equipment based on direct current. Albert attended a Catholic elementary school in Munich from the age of 5. When he was 8, he was transferred to the Luitpold Gymnasium, now known as the Albert Einstein Gymnasium, where he received advanced primary and then secondary school education. In 1894, Hermann and Jacob's company tendered for a contract to install electric lighting in Munich, but without success. They lacked the capital that would have been required to update their technology from direct current to the more efficient, alternating current alternative. The failure of their bid forced them to sell their Munich factory and search for new opportunities elsewhere. The Einstein family moved to Italy, first to Milan and a few months later to Pavia, where they settled in Palazzo Cornazzini. Einstein, then 15, stayed behind in Munich in order to finish his schooling. His father wanted him to study electrical engineering, but he was a fractious pupil who found the gymnasium's regimen and teaching methods far from congenial. He later wrote that the school's policy of strict rote learning was harmful to creativity. At the end of December 1894, a letter from a doctor persuaded the Luitpold's authorities to release him from its care, and he joined his family in Pavia. While in Italy as a teenager, he wrote an essay entitled On the Investigation of the State of the Ether in a Magnetic Field. Einstein excelled at physics and mathematics from an early age, and soon acquired the mathematical expertise normally only found in a child several years his senior. He began teaching himself algebra, calculus and Euclidean geometry when he was 12. He made such rapid progress that he discovered an original proof of the Pythagorean theorem before his 13th birthday. A family tutor, Max Talmud, said that only a short time after he had given the 12-year-old Einstein a geometry textbook, the boy had worked through the whole book. He thereupon devoted himself to higher mathematics. Soon the flight of his mathematical genius was so high I could not follow. Einstein recorded that he had mastered integral and differential calculus while still just 14. His love of algebra and geometry was so great that at 12, he was already confident that nature could be understood as a mathematical structure. At 13, when his range of enthusiasms had broadened to include music and philosophy, Einstein was introduced to Kant's critique of pure reason. Kant became his favorite philosopher, according to his tutor. At the time he was still a child, only 13 years old, yet Kant's works, incomprehensible to ordinary mortals, seemed to be clear to him. In 1895, at the age of 16, Einstein sat the entrance examination for the Federal Polytechnic School, later the Iguanasis Technische Hochschule, ETH, in Zurich, Switzerland. He failed to reach the required standard in the general part of the test, but performed with distinction in physics and mathematics. On the advice of the Polytechnic's principal, he completed his secondary education at the Argovian Cantonal School, a gymnasium, in Oran, Switzerland, graduating in 1896. While lodging in Oran with the family of Jost Winteler, he fell in love with Winteler's daughter, Marie. His sister, Maja, later married Winteler's son Paul. In January 1896, with his father's approval, Einstein renounced his citizenship of the German Kingdom of Württemberg in order to avoid conscription into military service. The Matura, graduation for the successful completion of higher secondary schooling, awarded to him in the September of that year, acknowledged him to have performed well across most of the curriculum, allotting him a top grade of 6 for history, physics, algebra, geometry, and descriptive geometry. At 17, he enrolled in the 4-year mathematics and physics teaching diploma program at the Federal Polytechnic School. Marie Winteler, a year older than him, took up a teaching post in Olsberg, Switzerland. The 5 other Polytechnic School freshmen following the same course as Einstein included just one woman, a 20-year-old Serbian, Mileva Maric. Over the next few years, the pair spent many hours discussing their shared interests and learning about topics in physics that the Polytechnic School's lectures did not cover. In his letters to Maric, Einstein confessed that exploring science with her by his side was much more enjoyable than reading a textbook in solitude. Eventually the two students became not only friends but also lovers. Historians of physics are divided on the question of the extent to which Maric contributed to the insights of Einstein's Annus Mirabilis publications. There is at least some evidence that he was influenced by her scientific ideas, but there are scholars who doubt whether her impact on his thought was of any great significance at all. Marriages, relationships and children. Correspondence between Einstein and Maric, discovered and published in 1987, revealed that in early 1902, while Maric was visiting her parents in Novi Sad, she gave birth to a daughter, Liesl. When Maric returned to Switzerland, it was without the child, whose fate is uncertain. A letter of Einstein's that he wrote in September 1903 suggests that the girl was either given up for adoption or died of scarlet fever in infancy. Einstein and Maric married in January 1903. In May 1904, their son Hans Albert was born in Bern, Switzerland. Their son Edward was born in Zurich in July 1910. In letters that Einstein wrote to Marie Winteler in the months before Edward's arrival, he described his love for his wife as misguided and mourned the missed life that he imagined he would have enjoyed if he had married Winteler instead. "I think of you in heartfelt love every spare minute and am so unhappy as only a man can be." In 1912, Einstein entered into a relationship with Elsa Lowenfeld, who was both his first cousin on his mother's side and his second cousin on his father's. When Maric learned of his infidelity soon after moving to Berlin with him in April 1914, she returned to Zurich, taking Hans Albert and Edward with her. Einstein and Maric were granted a divorce on February 14, 1919 on the grounds of having lived apart for 5 years. As part of the divorce settlement, Einstein agreed that if he were to win a Nobel Prize, he would give the money that he received to Maric. He won the prize 2 years later. Einstein married Lowenfeld in 1919. In 1923, he began a relationship with a secretary named Betty Newman, the niece of his close friend Hans Mussum. Lowenfeld nevertheless remained loyal to him, accompanying him when he emigrated to the United States in 1933. In 1935, she was diagnosed with heart and kidney problems. She died in December 1936. A volume of Einstein's letters released by Hebrew University of Jerusalem in 2006 added further names to the catalogue of women with whom he was romantically involved. They included Marguerite Lebach, a married Austrian, Estella Katzenelnbogen, the rich owner of a florist business, Toni Mendel, a wealthy Jewish widow, and Ethel Mayakanowski, a Berlin socialite. with whom he spent time and from whom he accepted gifts while married to Loentho. After being widowed, Einstein was briefly in a relationship with Margarita Konkova, thought by some to be a Russian spy. Her husband, the Russian sculptor Sergei Konkov, created the bronze bust of Einstein at the Institute for Advanced Study at Princeton. Following an episode of acute mental illness at about the age of 20, Einstein's son Edward was diagnosed with schizophrenia. He spent the remainder of his life either in the care of his mother or in temporary confinement in an asylum. After her death, he was committed permanently to Berghalsli, the psychiatric university hospital in Zurich. 1902 to 1909, assistant at the Swiss Patent Office. Einstein graduated from the Federal Polytechnic School in 1900, duly certified as competent to teach mathematics and physics. His successful acquisition of Swiss citizenship in February 1901 was not followed by the usual sequel of conscription. The Swiss authorities deemed him medically unfit for military service. He found that Swiss schools too appeared to have no use for him, failing to offer him a teaching position despite the almost 2 years that he spent applying for one. Eventually it was with the help of Marcel Grossman's father that he secured a post in Bern at the Swiss Patent Office, as an assistant examiner, level 3. Patent applications that landed on Einstein's desk for his evaluation included ideas for a gravel sorter and an electric typewriter. His employers were pleased enough with his work to make his position permanent in 1903, although they did not think that he should be promoted until he had fully mastered machine technology. It is conceivable that his labors at the Patent Office had a bearing on his development of his special theory of relativity. He arrived at his revolutionary ideas about space, time and light through thought experiments about the transmission of signals and the synchronization of clocks, matters which also figured in some of the inventions submitted to him for assessment. In 1902, Einstein and some friends whom he had met in Bern formed a group that held regular meetings to discuss science and philosophy. Their choice of a name for their club, the Olympia Academy, was an ironic comment upon its far from Olympian status. Sometimes they were joined by Merrick, who limited her participation in their proceedings to careful listening. The thinkers whose works they reflected upon included Henri Poincaré, Ernst Mach and David Hume, all of whom significantly influenced Einstein's own subsequent ideas and beliefs. 1900 to 1905, First scientific papers. Einstein's first paper, Vollständigen aus den Kapillarrotationen, conclusions drawn from the phenomena of capillarity, in which he proposed a model of intermolecular attraction that he afterwards disavowed as worthless, was published in the journal Annalen der Physik in 1900. His 24-page doctoral dissertation also addressed a topic in molecular physics, titled Eine neue Bestung der Moleküldimensionen, a new determination of molecular dimensions, and dedicated to his friend Marcel Grossman. It was completed on April 30, 1905 and approved by Professor Alfred Kleiner of the University of Zurich 3 months later. Einstein was formally awarded his Ph.D. on January 15, 1906, for other pieces of work that Einstein completed in 1905, his famous papers on the photoelectric effect, Brownian motion, his special theory of relativity and the equivalence of mass and energy, have led to the years being celebrated as an annus mirabilis for physics almost as wonderful as 1666, the year in which Isaac Newton experienced his greatest epiphanies. The publications deeply impressed Einstein's contemporaries. Thanks for watching this video. To know more about Einstein life beyond the year 1905, his scandals, his work on general relativity, lasers, unified field theory, his clash with Niels Bohr on quantum mechanics, spooky action, Hitler era, immigration to US, his involvement in Manhattan Project, his regrets and death, do not miss the next episode of Facts Unforeseen.